All right, speaking about Florida State, to go from 13 wins to 2 wins last year made them not only the biggest flop of the year, but maybe the biggest flop of all time. I don't, I haven't looked through every single record book that ever existed from, before World War II, but it's got to be up there. And then on the other side of that, look at Arizona State from 3-9 the year before to 11-3. So we had a huge flop. We had a team go from worst to first. Let's go around the horn. And nobody is going to do, at least I hope not for their mental health, because this was hell for me. Nobody is going to do what Florida State did, but who's going to have a big drop off like that? Who's going to go from 8, 9, 10 wins down to 3, 4, whatever, 12 wins down to 6? Or what's your big drop off team to keep an eye out for? And what's your big, worst to first? Hey, had a really rough year last year, but they could make a big splash. Who wants to go first?
Tom?
I will say a team that could fall is the aforementioned Crimson Tide. And that I don't know how far they could fall, but I think it's reasonable to say that the people in Tuscaloosa, the fans of this team, have extraordinarily high expectations for Kalen DeBoer, and they weren't met last year. So granted, they've done a nice job building that program steadily over time. He's gotten the staff in place that he wants. So that incremental progress is there. Those fans don't care about incremental progress. Big question mark at quarterback going into this upcoming season, although there is confidence from what I understand in Tuscaloosa about that. So I could just see a situation where Alabama just slips and maybe just narrowly misses the playoff again, and then everybody's pissed. That would be my flop. And then a riser. The Big 12 is just so it's what do you quantify that as? Like I saw something on, I think it was Cover 3, where it was like you could reasonably bet every single team in the Big 10 to win it and make out probably breaking even by the end of the year. I don't know if this is necessarily a big rise, but I think people are expecting them to drop off. I think Colorado with Caden Salter actually steps up and they do something a little bit bigger than they did last year, because I think the quarterback play is going to be better. So I'm excited to see what that could be. It's not something where it's focused around one guy on the offense with Travis Hunter. So I could see Colorado going there. And then also, if you're a betting person and you want to legitimately bet on somebody going from worst in their conference to the best in their conference, there's only one choice: Washington State. There's only 2 teams in the conference.
Quick question for both of you.
50-50 bet. It's the greatest bet in the world. Yeah.
Does Caden Salter get drafted higher than Shedeur?
I don't know if I can answer this yet.
I love how ESPN's already asking the question. It's like, oh, is Shedeur going to start week 1? It's like, they're like, why don't we squeeze some more, get some more water into this sponge and then wring it out. Yeah.
There's a reason I can't answer this question, because we're talking about teams that are regressing. I have Colorado as that team. I look at the Buffaloes going into this year, and how much of that roster was based off of just the sheer leadership of Travis Hunter. I don't think enough people pay attention to his attitude and his overall charisma on the football field, in that clubhouse and in that locker room. People adored him, and the way that he presented himself was such a major factor that we got to follow his process. We got to follow his identity. We got to follow his persona. And he did earn the right to, I think, have his number retired, because if he won a Heisman Trophy. He was a two-way player. He was a phenomenal two-way player. But now you're losing 2 critical positions. And on top of that, you are starting fresh with the quarterback, whether it be Caden Salter, who was coming off a down year last year at Liberty, or Juju Lewis, who's going to be broken into for the first time in Big 12 football, where when he was at USC, there was a very good shot that he was probably going to sit for at least 1 full year. Colorado's schedule also has a lot of hiccups along the way. They open the season against Georgia Tech on August 29th. That is a game to where, if you believe in the Yellow Jackets, it's going to be a bloodbath. I think Houston's going to be more improved with that game on September 12th. BYU, I still think is going to be very promising. That game at 9:15 on September 27th. At TCU, at Utah versus Iowa State. An improved West Virginia team potentially, Kansas State, Arizona State, and a lot of questions when it comes to their offensive and defensive line. There's a scenario where yes, Colorado, I think, could still be a very promising team in terms of the long future with Deion Sanders at the helm. But I am not buying a lot of stock going into this year that there's going to be brightness out in Boulder. But on the flip side, Tom brought this up. It's the Big 12. You can make any single bet, and it may end up panning out. I think Houston could be one of these teams that we see go from a 4-8 record or a 3-9 record underneath Willie Fritz into an 8-4, 9-3 record. That I love the addition of Connor Wigman. I love what they have at the tight end position now with Tanner Koizil. I think they brought in some really good wide receivers like Amari Thomas from UAB. I love the addition of Slade Nagel as their new offensive coordinator. Austin Armstrong, I think, is a better fit for a smaller tier defensive coordinator position than at a big time school, such as the likes of what you saw with Florida. I think their schedule also is going to have a couple of matchups where it will eventually give them a slight advantage at times. So Willie Fritz is a program builder. Willie Fritz does a very good job of targeting the right amount of talent and bringing in the right personnel. Don't be shocked if the Cougars going into November have a couple of must-see games that probably won't determine if they're going to be in the college football playoff or going to Arlington, but they might end up knocking somebody out to where their resume is going to look a lot more promising, and they may end up with a number attached to their name going into December.
All right, I'll go to the ACC for both of mine. I think Duke had a really nice year last year, but they have a chance to just absolutely have a putrid year. They went 9-3 in the regular season. They did lose their bowl game, but their schedule is tough. They welcome Illinois in week 2. That could be a loss. They go to Tulane in week 3. That could be a loss. They got to play NC State. That's a really tough one always. They play Syracuse. Both these teams have 5.5 as their win total over under. The loser of that game is probably not going to hit their over under. They do have to play the Georgia Tech team that Cole just mentioned. They have to go to Clemson. They play UNC late in the year. They do get games against UConn, Virginia, Wake Forest, Cal's one that's kind of up in the air, and they play Elon as well. They could legitimately go from 9 wins to 3 or 4. Their over-unders 5.5. Not crazy to think that they could go 4-8. Now, I like Manny Diaz. I hope they're a little bit better than that. But they have a brutal schedule. Their out of conference is brutal too with Tulane and Illinois. They could really fall off the map after a good year last year. And then, Manny's name that's kind of getting floated around here and there could not be as sexy to people out there looking. And almost by default, I mean, maybe it's not a surprise. I think Florida State rises pretty high just based on what their record was last year. Their over-under this year is 7.5. Obviously, winning 2 games last year. If they can get anywhere close to that over-under, they will improve by 5 or 6 wins. If they can find an upset somewhere and then take care of business, they could improve on that by 7 wins. They are truly a wild card and unknown. They could go 4-8 again this year if things fall off the rails and Castellanos gets hurt or anything like that happens. But I think almost by default, they will be one of the teams that improves their win total the most this year. And then adding one in, they weren't, just the absolute worst thing in the world. And I'm not sold that they go crazy, but Oklahoma could be that sneaky pick out of the SEC that goes 10-2 because they got the best quarterback and the best running back combo out of the portal. If the defense is really good again this year, Oklahoma could really surprise people. Their schedule is the toughest in the country, and so that makes it very unlikely that they win 10 games, in my opinion. But shoot, stranger things have happened, and if they can really click with Mateer and Ott and all the guys that they have there on the defense, Oklahoma could certainly be a team that increases their win total by 3 or 4 in the SEC and is talked about as a potential playoff team at the end of the year. I'm not arguing with that. I know Cole likes my Oklahoma pick, and then FSU just kind of by default.
Well, okay, here's the thing. I couldn't pick Oklahoma because of you said that they were you want to go bottom of the barrel, and 6-6 to me is just not bottom of the barrel.
Right. But if you had 4 wins in the SEC, and they play Michigan, if they get to 10-2, man, that's, I don't know.
Again, if you say they go 8-4 this year, for most teams in the SEC with that schedule, that's a 10-2 record.
Yeah,
literally, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, if they can get up to 9-3, they might make the playoff at 9-3. If there's not a bid stealer in there like Clemson was last year.
Yeah.